Hey folks, Eric Wooldridge here of the Additive Guru channel. In this video I'm going to walk you through a tutorial of using mesh-based manipulation software such as Meshmixer to manipulate, clean up, and tweak something that's been generatively designed and converted to a mesh. So what we have is a file here that is an object file. It could be an STL file that came from Fusion 360 after it had been generatively designed and exported out as a mesh file. And what I'm going to do is use Meshmixer's ability to manipulate that mesh to fix a few things that I don't like about it. Now I could do this in Meshmixer as well, or do this as in Fusion as well. However, I found this can be a quick and easy way to make some adjustments on the fly that are tweaks that I see that are just obvious, such as the fact this leg right here is pretty thin. So what I'm going to do, first of all, I'll notice when I've imported it into Meshmixer that I'm having the inability to kind of manipulate the way I want to. So I'm going to first of all hit Edit Transform, and I'm going to rotate it around 90 degrees. That will give me more flexibility in terms of my own orbiting while I work. So this works well. So if you ever can't orbit all the way around in Meshmixer, just use Transform to orbit it at 190 degree or something, and you'll find the way you want to. We'll zoom in real close right here. And there's a couple of different ways you can do this. I'm going to demonstrate one real fast, and that is to use the brushes, the sculpting, and we're going to use the bubble inflate right here. You can also use the pinch. I'm going to use the bubble inflate right here to thicken some areas up. Now, before I get started, see how the size of my zone is? I don't want the size to be that big, but I also don't want it to be too small. If it's too small, it won't really work real well. And I also don't want the strength to be too high because it might fill up too much. Like if I hit this, it just fills up too fast. So I'm going to kind of pull it back a little bit, and I'm just going to kind of smooth back and forth this zone. Now the negative side to the bubble, it does create as a bubble, and if you don't sort of move fast enough, you're going to get that weird bubble effect. So I'm just going to kind of move around here and thicken up that wall, because I can see immediately that it's too thin. So I'm going to pull this down a little bit this way, pull it this way. In fact, I'm actually going to go all the way down, back and forth between these two zones. You also notice that I have to kind of come around the back and thicken up maybe a little bit there, avoiding areas that are critical, because the bolt holes or bolt placement points are right in these zones, and so I don't really want to touch that if I can avoid it. So I'm kind of making these features that way. Now let me show you switching the brush to maybe a pinch, and let's see how the pinch does. And you can see the pinch thickens too, but it comes to a point that may not be as useful as you may want it to be. And we also have flatten features here too. So I'm just going to keep going with the bubble fill, maybe pull the strength down a little bit, maybe the depth down a little bit, and see if I can have a little bit more smoothness as I go. And I can even just click a couple times to build up some points that I need to build up strength. And it's kind of intuitive on where this needs to go. You obviously could use a finite element analysis software to kind of figure out where your weak points are. But we know kind of from a fact that stiffening those edges is going to improve the performance. So what I don't want are like little thin zones like what you see right here, even though the generative may have said, hey, this is the minimum that you need. Sometimes it never hurts to add a little extra in certain zones, just because you just know that, you know, a condition in reality may be slightly different than it anticipates. And sometimes it just creates an artistic feel for it too. So I've thickened it up, as you see right there, and now I'm going to turn around and use some of my smoothing options, such as my flatten, to kind of flatten it back down a little bit, get rid of that bubble effect, and maybe smooth it back out. So those bubbles don't always, I mean, it fills material up pretty fast for us, which is nice, but it doesn't always necessarily result in that major of a benefit, and sometimes those bubbles can be so extreme that support material might want to pop up because of those bubbles. So I'm going to kind of smooth it out just a little bit. And again, you can see how versatile this approach is, and how much freedom you have as the designer to kind of clean up your generative design. So I may switch back to a little bit of a fill right there to get that point. Watching again my size. So I want to strengthen it, but I don't want to affect that zone. And fill it up right there at that point. I don't really like that what you see right there, that little crease. Creases are bad in functionality. So I'm going to kind of smooth that crease back out. And there we go. So it doesn't really matter what file you're using with generative or what generative mesh you have brought in. A lot of times there is a little bit of cleanup necessary, and that's okay. That gives you the ability to kind of use some best judgment processes. You know, these little spikes that you see right here aren't good on it because it'll want to do weird support material at those spikes. And you want this thing to essentially grow uniformly. So anyway, what you can do is you can go grab you an STL, some kind of generative design that you've created or have access to, and then pull it into Meshmixer, working with your brushes such as bubble inflate and flatten to thicken up zones where stress may be concentrated. Thin curved corner points always accumulate a lot of stress, and then use your flatten to kind of get rid of that effect. This rib that you see right here kind of forming itself, that's going to be pretty strong. Alright, so give it a shot. That's a quick little tutorial. Once you're done, of course, the mesh has been modified, and to actually get it back out of the software, you're going to have to actually export it as an object or STL. Now, one other thing that I'll show you on this particular design, it came up with this weird little extra notch here. And so a lot of times we come back into the design and clean up stuff like that. So I'm going to clean up by flattening off, maybe increasing my size a little bit, and I'm going to just get rid of that because that's not going to be realistic to this load situation. And you'll notice that I don't always just click and drag. I do kind of a click and smooth maneuver. Click and drag, not long drags is the way I should say it. So I'm just doing a little click, little hit there. And if it's just doing too much at once, you don't want that. So you want to actually adjust your strength or your size or maybe your depth until it's flowing nice and easy for you to work with. And so see how I'm smoothing that out? That will make a better result overall for our design. Again, making sure that I don't touch anything in this zone because that's where the contact points are going to be for this particular project. So I don't want to interfere with any of that. I just want to figure out what I can fix above, smooth out, and make a little bit more realistic. I'm also taking a little time to look around to see if there's any funky joints, little sharp corners that I could probably take care of with a flattening or maybe a bubble fill. That one looks a little funky, but it's probably okay given so much material around it. And just looking for any little areas where stress might be concentrated. Another little thing about the bubble fill that I'll point out is that you see how it's made this ridge right here. That's probably going to be a good thing for me. In fact, I may want to put a stiffener ridge right here, so I'm going to switch back to bubble. And I'm going to size it down quite a bit. And I'm going to just try to create a bubble, maybe a little bit bigger so it's actually behaving. And I'm going to create like a bubble ridge. Right here's what I'm after. Because I want to actually create a stiffener, sort of almost like a pinched ridge, I guess you could say, right in that zone. Zoom on in a little bit more. There we go. That's what I'm after, right there. A stiffener ridge coming up into the part at that point. Taking my time, letting it fill up, and reinforcing that back edge. Maybe not getting too far though, because I don't want to get it where it's going to interfere with the object. So I'll come back in and flatten it down just a bit. That little ridge that we just created right there could have a very beneficial effect of stiffening the part in the right direction. In fact, I should put one probably right here as well. And I can try a pinching maneuver. I can try to like draw it in as well. Maybe a ridge created this way. Because it is actually thickening it up when I do that. My size can be smaller, my strength can be larger, and you can actually just draw in ridges. So that's another way to do it too. You got to be careful though that you don't stay in one place too long with some of these features because it'll do too much at once. So I can extend that ridge out. I can even spiderweb it, and as long as I'm staying pretty close to the surface, then what you'll find is it's easier for the printers to print this. So if I make a little ridge there and there and kind of keep it, doesn't pinch out too far, it'll be very easy for the printers to make. Now see right there what I've done? That's actually bad. We don't want that. So I can either hit flatten or I can hit undo to get rid of that. Hold it on it. So it goes back. because you don't want any like weird little pimples like that. They don't do any good, and sometimes it takes a while to get rid of them too. Our design now has a wart, but I can chop it off later. So anyway, several tricks that you can use. I should probably throw a little bit of a stiffener ridge right here. So I'll go back in, we'll try the draw feature again, maybe size a little bit more, maybe not that much. And let's see what we can do. There we go. That stiffener ridge should do nicely. Maybe gotten a little too thick, that's okay. So stiffener ridge there, stiffener ridge there, and we can come check this one. It would need a stiffener ridge on the back side, but just got to be careful that you don't hit anything. Maybe one on the inside there. We'll take care of what we're needing. Got to be careful though, again, because a bolt is probably going to attach in some of those areas. Okay, so if you see any other areas in the feature, you can always come back through and add more stiffener ridges right along these zones with the bubble smooth or the draw tool, and enhance your part creation and give it that stiffness it needs. One of the phenomenons associated with additive and the way the slicers work, ridges work really, really well for strength, but not big fat ridges. You want ridges that are kind of small, because that way it creates like a bump out as far as the printer is concerned, and create the tight little ridge. So thin ridges are actually better than big thick ridges. Another thing you do, look at this and you see this, well, this is kind of a corner, so I can just take a drawing tool and just kind of smooth that out and get just a little bit better. The part may not need this, but just for our example, you can almost treat it like welding the part at the joints and can create a completely new effect. Okay, so anyway, it's worth a try. Get yourself a file, go out there and do some modification to make your part stronger. Always coming back around and saying, you know what, this is a little bit of a bump out there. I want to smooth that in just a little bit so it's easier to print and it's not a lot of overhangs. And a few little clicks along that way to take care of it. And I can come back and flatten off these points right here so they don't look so pointed. And points really don't, little nubs, little warts don't really have much strength effect to them, but nice long ridges that form out of the object really do. Okay. Alright, so there you go. Enjoy, have fun, practice with it. It's all about getting the settings just right in your brushes, but you can take a generative design and enhance it quite a bit in an artistic fashion that's going to give you more strength, more stiffness. One other area that you notice that here that I probably don't need, I probably need to fix, is that I now have this point hanging off the bottom that does us no good. Just saw that, so let me fix that too, just to give you a feel for what you might want to watch out for. So I hit flatten and flatten that back off. So very powerful application. Allows you to take these designs and make them great and really interesting. Probably need to thicken up just a little bit right there, maybe with a draw or a bubble. And so I'll just do this. See how well that formed real quickly? That is great for us. That's an easy fill, and just hitting the button really quick and really fast, little spots will take care of what you need. Alright, thanks for watching, and make sure you practice this if you're in this generative work, because this can really give you an advantage in the part creation that you make, and even a really unique feature to them as well. And it's just, you get a feel for it over time. You just understand, whenever in doubt, you can always look at bones and just do like Google searches for organic structures and bones, and you can get a feel for how ridges and little areas like that can create extra stiffness that you need. So thanks for watching. Check out some of our other videos and our social media. Subscribe if you like what we're doing, and check out some of the other material. We'll see you.